Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Hey, Maryann.
Hey guys.
Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. For those joining us, my name is Maryann Pagano. I am BlackHawk Data's Chief Executive Officer. We are a woman-owned solutions provider at MSP out of the New York City area, and this is our quarterly Women in Tech podcast. So I welcome you guys all here today. I want to introduce my panel. I'm going to start with Chris.
So I love that you call me Chris because, of course, you never have, Maryann.
No.
Gang, I'm Chris Wolff. I'm with PTC, which is a Boston-based publicly traded software company. Maryann and I met longer ago than we would want to mention, working for a Cisco partner in the channel. And everybody in the industry calls me Wolfie. So please call me Wolfie.
Daria.
I love it, Wolfie. Thanks, Maryann. So thanks for hosting me. My name is Daria. I work for Nutanix. We're the data center company. I work with our New York City agencies, schools, colleges here in New York City. Looking forward for this discussion.
Dawn.
Hi, I'm Dawn Ringstaff. I am joining you guys out of Texas. So I didn't say y'all. Did you notice that? I said you guys. Just kind of hear people talk. I have been working in the channel for well over 20 years, and I was channel chief for a company called Area 1 Security. We've recently been acquired, so I am in the process right now of trying to rebuild channel again at this new company.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Ashley.
Hi, my name is Ashley Johnson. I work for Five9. We are a cloud contact center provider, and I'm a sales director here in New York City.
So thank you again for joining us. I think for me, being a woman in tech for all this time, right? And Wolfie, you and I started a really long time ago, right? And for us to make it work for us, right? It takes a lot, right? We have to work harder, work smarter, kind of constantly prove ourselves, right? And Dawn and I have this conversation on a monthly basis during our Women of the Channel events. For me, I always ask, what gets you into tech? And I always tell people, tech kind of finds you. You don't really find tech. I don't know many people who've actually picked that, especially from the female side. So I'll give you my story and how I got into tech. Technically, it was my grandmother, and I tell the story because it makes me seem super old. So my grandmother was like, "Hey, you need a job because your mother's going to basically kill you because you didn't go to school. So here's this job in the penny saver," and she circled it. And Dawn, it's funny enough, that was Eric Roosevelt's company. So that's how long that goes back. So I got a job as a receptionist, and it was tech. It was a tech firm back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I worked as a receptionist, and I had to kind of work my way up and around, and I had to really kind of prove myself. And I had business experience, and someone gave me a shot to answer the phone. And it was really it was a Cabletron reseller way back in the day. And I had to kind of work my way up from receptionist to a marketing person, right? So putting together marketing slicks, because back then you couldn't go to the internet and look for marketing information. So building a marketing team and learning to do that, just kind of getting my hands into everything. So it was actually thanks to my grandmother, I'm technically where I am today. I kind of wish she was here to see where I was, but I know she does. So that's my story into how I got into tech. Wolfie, what about you?
Maryann, when I graduated university, I thought I was all that in a bag of chips and completely flailed in corporate recruiting. All my friends were working for consulting firms, and I finally found what looked like a bank training program. It was actually a contact center. So, Ashley, I can appreciate the contact center solutions you have. It was quote a bank training program, but we gave people their balance over the phone, and we would look up Larry Bird's balance in Boston. That's how security was back then. Went out to dinner with some girlfriends, and this really amazing, dynamic woman joined us. And I said, "What does she do? Because whatever that is, I want to do it too." And she hired me as her inside sales rep. So I took my headset and moved from the bank to a cubicle, and the rest was history.
Daria, how about you?
I love it. So it's my first time talking to all these incredible women here today, but I think all the stories start in contact centers. So this is actually how I started. I was 17. I was looking for a part-time job during my college years. So somewhere I can work evenings and weekends. So I started this contact center, and they gave me this assignment to pretty much just call down the yellow pages, all random people, and sell furniture over the phone. I was horrified. It was like the most unpleasant back then for me job ever. And they quickly reassigned me to another project just to carry out a questionnaire and ask people like, what are your political views? How much money do you make? All of that. But I ended up spending there about 3 years, getting promoted there, doing some analytical work, some reports. So I kind of get more excited about tech starting over there. So it gave me like a good base to start with.
That's interesting. Cold calling is tough. I've learned to do it, but it's not pretty. Dawn, how about you?
Well, I guess I'm going to kind of show my age here. I was working as a paralegal because I was trying to decide, did I want to go on to law school or did I want to be a teacher, right? Those were kind of my two choices. And after several years, one of the attorneys that I was working for in corporate, I had quickly decided, first, I have an 8-month-old baby and an 8-year-old. And I was like, this is not what I want to do, right? First, shame on me for saying so. Teachers don't make enough money. And I really don't think I like attorneys, so I don't think I want to be one. And this particular gentleman came to me one afternoon to let me know he was leaving the company because he had invested heavily in an internet startup company, which that kind of shows it's that late 80s, early 90s timeframe of an internet startup company. What did that mean, right? It meant you had a bank of 14.4 modems that made noise all day long, which some people may not remember, but this also became my big leap of faith and a risk take for me as well. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go with you. And I did, but it meant, again, with an 8-month-old baby and an 8-year-old, it meant driving 2 hours one way to get to work. It meant giving up benefits. It meant a salary decrease because at the time it was a small company, right? And then I can just go forward 28 years talking about the different steps of just saying, the internet sounds like a really cool thing. I'm going to do it, right? That was it. That's how it happened.
Yeah, I remember those days, so you're talking to the wrong person. Ashley, how about you?
So I actually did go to law school. I have a very interesting journey. I practiced law for 3 years, and when I graduated was when the economy was like tanking, and when I graduated undergrad, so everyone was pretty much getting JDs or MBAs at the time. So when I got out and started practicing law, there was all these people looking for jobs, and it really drove down like starting salaries and drove up the number of hours you were expected to work. So for me personally, I just felt like there was not enough quality of life, and I didn't really see an end to it. Like, what's the end goal? You go on partner track. There weren't very many women in law even then. So I kind of had to figure out, how can I make money, because I have student debt from law school, from this degree that I now do not want to use. So I ended up shifting to sales, and I actually worked in healthcare sales for about like 4 or 5 years. And I randomly got headhunted to technology. And it's not something that I was actively seeking out, but like Maryann said, sometimes a door opens and you just kind of find yourself there. And now I can't picture myself doing anything else. I've been selling call center technology for almost 5 years, and it's very niche. I don't think any little girl ever, wants to do that when they're younger, but I really, really, really like it. And I'm happy that life took me here.
Well, I think that's the important part, right? The part of me being a female CEO, and as Dawn and I have seen during the Women of the Channel and all the different events that we have, especially in a solution provider space, there aren't many women, right? Especially on a CEO level, or women that have started the business, right? They may have been given a title, but someone went to start from really zero. And I remember when I first started, Wolfie was one of my first calls. I'm trying to be professional. And I said to her, hey, this is what I did. I quit my job and now I got to start a business. And I remember the advice that she gave me was, well, you're up against, some big boys, right? The big players, right? You're going to have to find a niche, a way to make yourself different, a way to differentiate yourself from the pack, or you're just going to basically get swallowed up by the pack. And it was nerve-wracking because it was like, oh God, what did I do? Oh no. But you want to know what? I had to, because of the fact that technology is, right, male dominated, right? And we've all seen that, right? finding a spot for myself, right? Again, CEO is not on my path. Inside sales rep, sales, marketing was all on my path. And that's typically where you see most of the women sit, right? And I think that being able to go past that for me, like that was an obstacle for me because for the first year, I've never used the word CEO ever. It was scary for me because in my head, I wasn't a man, right? And I wasn't sure I could actually say that out loud with somebody respecting me. So for me, it was such a big obstacle to overcome. So thank you, first of all, for your advice, because that plays in my head all the time still. But that's an obstacle for me. So Chris, what about you from an obstacle perspective? What do you think was one of your biggest obstacles you've seen?
For me, I think like many of us, when you were in college, it was acceptable to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher. And if you could see it, you could be it. So I went into banking because I had seen my aunts succeed in banking. It never occurred to me that technology was a role, or that I, with a liberal arts degree, could be successful in technology. I've now started an externship program that I run every year, inviting particularly new and career people, people of color, people from diverse backgrounds, to come and learn what tech is all about, how you convey a business solution to a set of business problems, and talk to the people change as opposed to the architectures. And it's just been so rewarding to, because for me, I couldn't see it. I didn't know you could be it. Lucky for me, I had some incredible mentors and role models along the way. Many of you know Wendy Barr from Cisco, or Linda Conley, formerly with Dell EMC. There's a set of women out there who showed me how to be it. And I hooked right onto that idea and followed along with them.
That was great. Daria, how about you?
So I agree with Wolfie. I had some amazing mentors along the way, and I just kind of stuck with the people who I like. Like I had an amazing manager at Microsoft. She was a woman, and she gave me a lot of advice there. So I never thought about being a woman might be challenging. So it was at times, but I never thought about that way. I just thought about, you got to get things done, and this is how I'm going to get there. And those incredible women, they just inspired me to do what needs to be done and kind of set aside women, men, whatever happens. Yeah, I think that's it.
Dawn, how about you?
I honestly think my biggest obstacle was me getting out of my own way, right? Because when I started, it was like doing everything in the office. And then when Microsoft bought our company, I had to start looking for something else and was referred into this whole channel world. So that's all I've ever done outside of, helping get this company off the ground. But, and back then, there was very few women, especially in sales, right? They were in marketing, they were doing different things, but I never really, I guess if I look back, maybe being female was an obstacle. I just never thought about it. But I did a few things back then that it's like, oh my gosh, if I could go back again, what would I do? I didn't self-promote, right? And I started to hear, I'll tell you, you talked about Dell. I mean, Cheryl Cook, when I actually ran across Cheryl Cook, because I was part of Dell for a few years because of an acquisition. And even being not in my 20s, not in my 30s, I was like, oh, that's what I want to be. I want to be her. I want to wear those shoes. I want people to look at me when she walks in and when I walk in a room. And I started paying attention to why is this not happening? And I would hear things like, oh, Dawn, you're such a hard worker. You do such a good job. You're so helpful. But then I was hearing about my male peers. Oh, they're ambitious. They're confident. And I was like, okay, I don't want to be helpful and a hard worker, right? That puts me back in that teacher world. I love teachers, right? And I get to do the best of both now because I get to mentor. But I had to learn, and it was because of groups like being with Maryann. I mean, I admire her so much for the steps she took. I've had to learn to self-promote and to take control and to have somebody say she's ambitious. And in the last year, I saw that, like again, to Cheryl, she was always one of the Power 100 women in the channel company, right? And that became a goal for me. Thought it would never happen. And I'm telling you, ladies, when that honor was bestowed on me this last year, I almost fell out of this chair. I couldn't believe it. So I think it was me, and I'm learning through networking and talking to ladies like yourself. A little too late in my career, but I'm learning to get out of my way and go get what I want.
Well done.
I have a question for the group, and maybe the people in the chat would want to weigh in on this. I gathered about 20 young women together to talk about careers in tech. One of the first things I asked them all was whether they felt comfortable talking about money. And they all kind of squirmed. And I think women to this day still squirm when we talk about money. And I asked how many of them had been a babysitter. So if you've been a babysitter, raise your hand. And when mom or dad would come home at the end of the evening and say, oh, geez, Chris, thank you. The house is cleaner than it was when I left. The kids are alive. How much do I owe you? What was the answer that you as a woman or a young girl might give to that question?
Whatever you think.
Whatever you want to pay me is fine.
Yeah.
And we've been socialized to be that way and not to promote ourselves. And we take that same message to work. We say, gosh, I do this job for free. I'm just so grateful to be here and to learn. And I'll trade that to work hard. And what we're really saying is recognize me, promote me, and pay me fairly. But we've never been taught to say those words out loud.
No,
Agreed.
not at all.
So
Ashley, what about you?
Sat my daughter and her friends down, and I told them how to talk about money.
Money's hard. Money's hard. Ashley, you're on sales like me, right? So is Daria. We have to negotiate a sale. It's hard for the women to do that. It really, truly is.
I mean, I think you guys are right. I think just historically women don't ask for it, but having a legal background, like less than 10% of cases go to trial. So like, I feel very comfortable negotiating because I did that for 3 years. But I know I was recently out at like a sales boot camp with a bunch of like new hires and asked them who asked for more. No, almost no one did. And there were certain things that were negotiable. There were certain things that weren't, but a lot of people didn't even ask, which was crazy to me. So, I mean, I think everyone on here is kind of onto something. Like men are more likely to ask. So women just need to start taking a seat at the table and asking for it, because the worst you can get is no. But if not, you're leaving money on the table, and it really adds up over a lifetime.
Yep. I think like just to add to this, I think like in our jobs in tech, at least for me, it's all about money. I mean, kind of take it as a joke and not. So I know how much like I want to make, and I have a couple of good friends, men on my team or like within my network, who I always ask, and they will honestly tell me how much they make, so I can kind of ballpark myself. And then on top of that, I'll ask like for 20% more, and then they might give me less. But someone told me that good advice: always ask a little more that you actually think you're worth, 20-30%, and just go for it. So I'm fortunate to have those friends.
My first negotiation as a CEO was in a room. It was for our biggest project to date. And as the guy started trying to negotiate with me, I think I panicked. So instead of going up, I went down. My instinct was to ask for less, right? I wasn't confident enough to ask for more, but I think that goes along with Chris and what Dawn, you guys said. I wasn't capable of asking. I panicked and went down.
Well, I don't know that it's that we're not capable of asking, but we've been heavily socialized to be pleasing, to be helpful. There are adjectives that, are ingrained in us from when we're little kids that we've all had to overcome. And there's a great article, it's an oldie but a goodie, back from 2014 in Harvard Business Review. It's called How to Promote Yourself Without Looking Like a Jerk. And there was a companion to that talked about how women are punished for asking for more or being forthcoming. So having to walk that fine line socially is a reality for us. And I think it's fun to see this next generation of people and leaders like you, Maryann, making that stigma go away and then really walking the fine line elegantly.
I think I've learned to carry myself better. I think thanks to Dawn and the women on the channel and our executive committee, right? I wrote down a lot of the things that they say to do, try to write successes in a book, try to take those things and make more of it, right? And not always eat the elephant, right? And I try to I don't take praise well either. I don't think many women do, right? You're not used to taking praise well. So learning to take that better and run with it and do something with it, right? And be able to shape yourself and your own career and your mindset, right? I can walk into a room now and I know I have a title, right? I know who I am. I didn't know it first, right? I walk into a room, I'm like, hi, I'm Maryann. I'm that same inside sales rep I've always been for 20 years, you know, and now I'm just like, hi, I'm Maryann. I'm BlackHawk CEO. And it's hard to say that out loud because I'm just who I am, right? I don't have to change who I am, you know, but I think that I want other women to look at us, right? Me, what we're doing, right? And the fact that I have a title and know that, hey, I could go from a receptionist answering the phone to gathering marketing material in 15, 20 years with a lot of hard work and, you know, enthusiasm. I can be a CEO one day. I could be a VP all day. I mean, Chris, you've held some great titles over the time. You really have. I mean, I looked up to you when you were at, I see Tom Flower, like, good point, Wolfie, yay. You know, I think that over time that, like, I looked at you and you carried yourself so much better than I did. I mean, I don't think our age is that different, but you carried yourself so much better than I did.
Well, I had a mentor teach me how to do the executive stance. So when you come to a meeting, you literally spread out. And I've taught my college age daughter and all of her friends who I think of like daughters the same thing. When we go into a big boardroom, very often as women, we'll wait till everybody has a good seat, and then we'll take the lesser seat. So instead, planting yourself doesn't have to be the best seat, but in an excellent seat and spread out. You know, make some room for yourself. Put your purse here. Put your notebook there. And then physically hold yourself open. If you act bigger than you are, it's like scaring off an animal, right? If you make yourself big to the bear, maybe they will run away.
That's true. That's hard to do. I don't think that we all have that ability to do that. I've had to. I have no choice. Right?
I like that. I'll try right now. It's like a president posture, right? Like the way they sit, like where you're open. It's kind of hard to do, but I like it.
But I do wait for the last seat in the room. That's what I do. I'll wait for everybody to sit, and then I'll pick a seat. I typically don't sit first. And I think, so I was one of the women at the channel events when I had to go to like a vendor event, and I was afraid that other people would be there that I didn't want to see. And you guys all said, sit right next to them. If they intimidate you, sit right next to them, and don't let them intimidate you. And that's a tough thing, but I did it, right? And then your fear goes away a little bit.
I'm loving watching the chat. Sherry, thanks for finding that article I referenced. And Tom Flaherty, great to see you again, buddy, on this call. Shannon has her hand up, and I don't know how she asked the question.
You know, she's waving. I can never tell if the hand up is a question or a wave.
No, I think one of the things that you're pointing out here, Wolfie, is, and see, I just called you like we've known each other forever, is the other thing that I didn't do to get to a point where I'm actually a little more comfortable. I mean, my first actual time I agreed to even be on video and camera because I hate myself and do an interview was for Maryann. But it's because I have found myself, because of Women in the Channel, with a great network group. And now what I consider a very good friend and career coach who, like the 20% number that was just referenced, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's out of her book. But the other thing for me is planning, right? So Ashley, you're talking about you're comfortable negotiating, right? Because of your legal background. But when you went into a negotiation, you were prepared. You knew what it was you were negotiating and how you were going to get there. I think for me, too many times in my career, I just wanted to get the job done and for somebody to pat me on the back when I was done and say, good job, right? I didn't have a clear path of what I want to do, when I want to do it, and how I think I'm going to get there. And these are the things that I'm absolutely not going to sway on. And now I do that, right? And again, it's just been through a lot of, I love to mentor young girls, but I also love what I get back in return. But that's another big thing for me is I have to have a plan. I'm learning a lot about write it down, right? Before I go into a big review or a session about how we're going to build out this program, I know what I want to get there. I know I'm going to get pushback, but I plan for that. So
I think that's a great point. And I think Daria brought up a good point too, is a lot a lot of it boils down to knowing what you can ask for and what you can give away potentially in concession as well, because you have wants, and I'm sure whoever you're negotiating with does as well. So, I mean, in the event of like, somebody who's applying for a job, like, have you talked to people on the team? Do you know what they're making? Are there other people that work for the company that are willing to share that intel with you? And I found a lot of the mentors that I've had, to be honest, since I've come into selling technology, have been men that just really had my best interests at heart and were willing to like put their cards on the table. I started in the channel before I flipped to direct sales, and I'm so glad that I did, because what I sell is very technical, but it kind of gave me a little bit of leeway to learn the channel, to understand how to work with partners while also learning the technical side of things. And you make so many great friends in the channel that are willing to share that kind of information with you when you are applying for a job.
One thing I found really interesting, great to see Frank Polisi here as well. High five to you, Frank. Old Home Week. I was very fortunate. Jerry Brown, who some of you may know, took me under his wing, and well, mentors will help you learn job skills or career skills, like how to look confident or how to write a presentation or how to carry yourself. A sponsor will actually put themselves out there and speak on your behalf and recommend you when you're not in the room. And I've asked my mentees, who is your sponsor? And if you don't know, you may not have one. So asking for mentoring is kind of a polite way to say, would you speak up for me? I think you have to be more specific and find people who have power and say, I'm really interested in our business. I know I have these things to add. I need to build up these skills. If the company is looking for this set of capabilities, I'll trade that in order to learn these following things that I don't have under my belt yet. Would you speak on my behalf? And there's a great podcaster recording, Carla's Pearls, by Carla Harris. Just phenomenal. She's a great book, great speaker, and she talks about learning how to describe yourself and teach people how to think of you.
I love that. But one of the things too, it's so funny that two of my best mentors ever, I still work with today. So you kind of follow around good people, and they are men. One of them is lightly referred to as the godfather of the channel. But the other thing with me, talking about getting out of my own way, you have to be willing to take that advice when you ask for it and act on it, right? That's another thing that, and I asked for it. How did I handle that call? Or we're coming into a difficult situation. Do you have recommendations? But I would say 5 years ago, I'd go, yeah. I'm still going to take the last seat in the room, and I'm still going to do it the way I've always done it. So you have to be able to not only ask for that in the right way, but then what are you going to do with the information that you're given? How are you going to act on it, right? Because then you're wasting everybody's time.
I think we learned that through the monthly women in the channel, right? Because sometimes, as you could see, like when we first started those meetings, I was fluttered all the time. I was always, I was difficult to talk to because I was always stressed and unsure of myself, and I come across like a crazy person sometimes. And I've kind of gotten better over time, right? We talk about people like Frank and and Tom Flaherty. A lot of these guys have supported me through my career. So men, it's not always about women supporting women. There's a lot of men out there who support you. Those are still my friends that I can call, right? Raj Patel's on the phone, right? People that I can call, no matter when I call them or whatever I need, are there to guide and advise and be there to help coach. Because you always need coaches, whether it's a man coach or a female coach, it doesn't really matter. You still need a coach. And I think at this point, in my career, I need to try to find different ways to be a coach, to be that mentor, to be that go-to person for somebody else, right? I think one of the reasons I wanted to do these on a quarterly basis is so that I can draw other people, whether it's women or anybody, into tech and know that they have a space to be. Ashley went to a closer, big deal. Good luck, Ashley. I think for us, it's important for us to have people to go to, whether it's each other. I find I think a lot out of women in the channel. I do. I've written a lot of notes from that. Val Wright runs the group, and she's really good about, picking up when I'm positive, when I'm not, and advice. And everyone's making you stop and look at yourself and figure out, okay, well, you did do this. Look where you are, and you don't do that always in yourself. right? And I think that having those coaches will be is important, right? Having those Jerry Browns in your life, right, are important because you need people like that to help get you through to the next week, the next day, the next month.
I have a guy I work with now who talks about making deposits and withdrawals. And when my kids were little, I used to try and fill up my car anytime I went anywhere to get as many chits in the bank for carpooling for my kids when I needed it, because I traveled a lot. And when I'd go away, my husband would be like, "Oh, all these people drove the kids everywhere." I'm like, "Those aren't your chits. You didn't make those deposits. You're not allowed to make those withdrawals." I find now if I'm having an event or I pick up a piece of information about somebody's client, I'll try and give as much of that information to as many people who can use it as possible. So then when I need help, I put some chits in the bank. And that's kind of where the network really pays off.
Yeah, you need a network around you. I think that we've all come from meeting people along the way who you can turn to and ask questions to, right? There's all of those people who are my friends, right? And I think when I won the SBA award a few months ago, it gave me a chance to reflect and look at, people who were your friends, who weren't really your friends, and people who are truly your friends will always have your back. You have to find those because that's what keeps you balanced. I think, Dawn, that word, who balances you, Val asks all the time. And you need people to balance you because you do go off balance, right? And you need people to rebalance you and reset your expectations of yourself, your career, your future. I think for me, I want to be able to I'm trying to balance myself still. I think I bit off a whole lot and I'm still trying to rebalance myself. I assume when I feel balanced, then I feel unbalanced again. So I think I'll be balancing myself forever. But having someone, Chris, like you to call when I needed somebody, I need a female's perspective of what do I do now? And there aren't that many you can call.
So congratulations. Maryann, you haven't spoken about winning that award, but that doesn't come just like out of the blue. Talk about the process and raising your hand for consideration and how you promoted yourself to actually win that award. And congratulations.
Thank you. I know it was hard because there's thousands of entrepreneurs in the U.S. Small Business Administration, and it was like, well, do I really deserve it? Did I really do anything? Like, what have I really done? I started a business and I tried, but then when you really kind of think about it, and you have to write up the questionnaires, and it goes to your local SBA center, which is here in Farmingdale, Long Island, and they have to read through all the nominations and the requests that they get, and then you go through interview processes. And then you get an email one day that says, "Hey, you won. You're female entrepreneur of the year," and it's kind of cool because it's like, wait a second, I actually did win, and it's exciting because again, if you look at the CRN's top 500, the CRN top fastest growing 150, the amount of female CEOs in that list are just so small. And I think there's 3 of us in the top, I think, fastest growing 150. There's probably 10 of us in the 500.
This is super inspiring. Congrats.
What made you, I'm sorry about that. What made you, because we've been talking for over a year now and your balancing act, what pushed you over the edge to go ahead and make time? Because that took time out of your busy schedule, the business that you own and you're running. And we've talked earlier today about not always being able to have a full staff. So what pushed you over the edge to go, you know what, I'm going to do this because I deserve this?
So when I first started the business, the SBA was probably one of the first people I reached out to because now you go from having a job where you're really, really busy to all of a sudden you have like nothing to do. Nobody calls, right? So I'm like, well, what do I do now? So I called up the SBA and I went to go see them. So when the Entrepreneur of the Year came around, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd love you to throw in your story." And then I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm too busy. I'm not going to win anyway." And I was like, you know what? I'll just give it a try. And I spent a weekend just thinking about it. And then they were so happy with the article that was written. And then I got to do the SBA video and the thank you video, which is posted on our website. And it gave me a chance to reflect about women in tech. And that's when I thought about you, Wolfie, is that one of the people I spoke to in the very beginning was like, "You crazy person, what do you do?" And it was hard. And, I think for me, Dawn, I think the time when Val, during one of our meetings, said, "You're like, you need a balancer. You need to rebalance yourself. You need to pull yourself back together, pick yourself up, and rebalance yourself." And that was the moment I knew I was kind of off the rails. and I had to rebalance myself and try to stay as balanced as I possibly could, right? I can't unbalance by that much. I still unbalance, but I don't unbalance as much, right? I try to stay in that medium balance, right? It's always going to be a balancing act in business. It's just you don't want to go so far off the rails. And yes, Tom Riley, I was an order processor. I was an inside sales rep most of my career. And yes, look at me now, man.
Congratulations.
You know, I think for me, it's about being able to encourage. You know, Tom's daughter Jackie works for us now, and she's awesome. You know, she's a young girl who is interested in tech, interested in making herself, right? She doesn't know what she wants to do, but she's me 20 plus years ago, right? Coming into an industry, we're just gonna have more women than it had when we all started, right? But now she's got a mentor in me. She's got someone in me that she can look to for help and guidance and training. But I see me in her, right? Because she wants to learn and just sponge and absorb, right? And I'm hoping she can be I can be that first person that she has that can really give her that chance in this industry. Because I think it's a great industry. We've all lived in this forever. So I think we're in a great industry. I told you time goes fast.
Well, look what you've done. Look in the comments from Shelly.
Oh, I know.
She's going to say yes and get out of her way and venture into tech. This is what you wanted to accomplish. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's really what you do want to accomplish. And that's what I tell everybody. If you could find one person, right, one person to promote, one person to look at you, and one person, you know, that you can encourage, whether it's Tom Riley's daughter Jackie, whether it's Shelly, right? One person that we can encourage. That's a job well done for us, right? In a 45-minute session, for us, that's a job well done, right? And I think that it's up to people like us who have kind of made their mark to kind of bring somebody in behind us and help them shape their future, like somebody helped us, like Daria Brown did for you, like a lot of people did for me. You know,
well, I would encourage every woman to go in tech. I think it's the industry is so unique. There are not that many women, and just by being women in tech, you can take advantage of this. Like I always looked at this way. I'm like, I'm the only one among like 10 other guys in the room. I'm different, and I'm gonna stick up, and I'm just gonna be who I am, and kind of take it to my advantage. I didn't feel like I'm a woman, that's why I have to be quiet or don't ask questions. I always felt like they're gonna remember me because I'm different than them. So it's a great, sphere to be in.
And I think that's being your authentic self, just as you said, Daria, being who you are, bringing all of what you bring to the table, and knowing that you deserve to be there. I think one thing I wrote a blog ages ago called Take Heart Liberal Arts Majors. We need more non-techies in tech than we need techies. We need people who can help manage people, who can pay the bills, who can promote with marketing, who can all kinds of things that are necessary. But you want to enter an industry that's growing, and there's no industry, maybe bar med tech, that's growing faster than we are. So if you want to have a successful ability to take care of yourself and build a nest egg, please come into tech. Whether you don't have to code to get into our business.
And you know what? I have a really good example that you also have people coming out of tech have a lot more to offer to the tech business than one would think. We have a young lady that's part of our marketing team who came over from Walgreens, and she was part of the Walgreens reward program or something. And my first initial reaction was, oh, well, I guess it's marketing maybe. But oh my goodness, I mean, their consumer business and how they've drawn people in, she's brought some of that here. And she has such bright, out of the box ideas that I learn from her every week. So, that's the other thing is don't think I don't know anything about it. Bring what you do know and apply it to this industry.
It's really good, Dawn.
You guys are great pals. We have 5 minutes left. So advice to your younger self, advice to anyone wanting to come into tech. So Wolfie, what would you besides what you gave me?
I would have I had a great experience in marketing where I did a lot of innovative things. I bought the first license for Salesforce.com with my credit card for all of Dimension Data. I found this company Eloqua when it was a 10-person startup in Canada and set up click tracking that allowed us to do very cool flywheel campaigns. I would have moved into sales faster than I did, because I realize now I could have made a lot more money over the course of my career by being in sales earlier. And I wouldn't have put up with bad behavior from people. I've had men and women bosses, some of whom have been terrific, some have not been terrific, and I wouldn't have stuck around the turkeys as long as I did in some cases.
Very true.
How about you, Dawn? What's your advice?
I think it goes back to where I started, is know what I want and go after it with a passion, have a plan, and get out of my way. Because I think back so often, is if I had this attitude that I have today, 15, 20 years ago, where would I be? Right. And believe me, I don't have a problem where I am at all, but it's kind of funny that in my 50s, I feel like I've grown up so much in the last 5 years. Right. And now I want to start all over and do it again with what I know right now. So, not you.
Younger self. So I would tell myself to try to make as many connections as possible, just meet people, because when I was starting in tech, like for me, it was just all about getting the job done. So I would find myself working like 12, 14 hours in the office. I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't social, but right now I would prioritize things a little bit different. Like I would rather go out and network and meet people and like speak up and promote myself rather than just trying to get everything done. And that was the times I was working for Microsoft. So right now, I think my boss wouldn't like that, but I would be like, what are the 50, 60% that I need to get done? Everything else is not essential. Just quit, just go.
If I could add in, Maryann, what Daria says just hit home to me. I had a very talented young woman in Eastern Europe, one of our Eastern European countries, had moved to London, and she wanted to get information on executive presence and how to develop that. One of the most poised people, well-spoken people I've run into professionally. And I said, well, what do you like to do? I read business books. Do you like to go play golf? No, I don't. I have a family I take care of. I asked her questions about her lifestyle, and I suddenly realized you don't need executive presence, but you do need to be present where the executives are so they get to know you. So burning the midnight oil until 2 a.m. in your home office to have a perfect presentation versus being with the crew and trying something you haven't ever done before. Maybe it's golfing, maybe it's cycling, but be where the executives are so you can build those relationships.
Good point.
Yeah.
And if you are an executive, think about the events that you host so that they are more inclusive of other people. Ruba Bordo and I at Cisco made a promise that we would have no more steak dinners. We would have 6 a.m. Soul Cycle and then Starbucks afterwards. And that's how we did all our Cisco Live events.
Wow, that's amazing.
Awesome.
That's true. I mean, listen, I work late hours, weekends. No one sees that, but no one knows you're doing it, right? So you have to really be present when the people that you're trying to work with or for are present, and kind of make yourself known. And I think there's plenty of opportunity, like you said, for women in tech, for anyone in tech. If you don't have to be a techie, a coder, an engineer. There's so much out there for people to grab onto, whether it's marketing or sales or finance or operations or project managers. I mean, there's so much out there. There's so much opportunity for people to just be in tech and not be that techie person. I've never been techie, but I've been in many different roles. And I think that's what helped shape me for who I am today, is having that ability to do lots of different things like we all had a chance to do. But I thank you guys very much for today. You guys were an awesome panel. Thank you for the comments. Thank you to everybody. We will see you in December for our LinkedIn Live, giving back to Raj Patel and his organization for women in school. So thank you very much. Thank you to my panel. Signing off now. Thanks, everybody.
Enjoyed it.
Bye.